The moment is officially here. Well, close. We're just 8 days away from the 2023 NFL Draft, and it's time to set the Bengals draft board. Hi again, everyone, and welcome into Cincinnati Bengals Talk. I'm James Rapien, joined by everyone. So let's rattle them off. As always, Andrew Fox-Miller behind the scenes, Joe Goodberry, who put this together and said, hey, will you be Mike Brown for this front office exercise? Joe Goodberry is here. Draft guy Jared is here. Mike Santagata is here. Matt Minnich is here. Patrick Carlisle is here. And what we're going to do is set the Bengals draft board. We're going to go about 2 rounds. So buckle up for a lot of X's and O's, a lot of me chiming in about how certain skill players should be higher on the board. And I think some big man trench talk because, well, there's some trench fans here. So a lot to dive into, Joe. I appreciate it. Let's let you go first and kind of set the scene for us a bit.
Okay, so the idea here is what the Bengals are probably doing, what every team is probably doing this over this next week. Everything is done, right? You've got the scouts grades in. Those were in since January. But you've got the combine information. You've got the pro day testing. You've met with these guys at the combine, pro day, visits. Everything you need, all the information is now locked in. The final part, and you've got a general idea of how the board is going to look, based on everything you have, but getting the process completed before you're on the clock. You don't have much time. You can't argue once you're on the clock of this guy versus that guy. So you do it now, you do it over the next week, and make sure you're prepared. So when your team's on the clock and you've already prepared for this scenario, you already know who to pick. There may be some slight talk there, but everyone's in unison. You come to at least somewhat of an agreement that, hey, this is the direction we're going to go. And hopefully we can get this this done, and maybe we can simulate a round or two and see if it works, see if we can get to that pick and say, hey, guys, yeah, this is the guy we had on the board. This is the way we are going to go forward with it. But I wanted to say it's not just an easy 1 through 100, right, on your board. We're going to set tiers, and this is how the Bengals do it. If you've talked to Duke Tobin or listened to anything he said, and I have before, and he said, we don't just say first round guy, second round guy. We've got 3 buckets within each round. So you've got a 1A, a 1B, and a 1C. And it's the same for the second round, a 2A, 2B, 2C. And what that does is try to keep guys grouped together. So you never come out of a bucket to go into the next group because, let's say, we want a right tackle and we're on the clock and it's only 1C guys remaining. Well, there's no tackle in there. We're not going to go down to a 2A into the next tier. So the idea here is to not just feel comfortable ranking these guys. It's getting them in the correct bucket so that when we get there, we can say, hey, we want to stay within, or maybe there's 1 or 2 1B guys remaining at 28, makes it an easy pick for us. If it's not an easy pick, we want to rank within the bucket afterwards so that, again, we're prepared when we get to that point.
Yeah, and basically Joe set it up. So he's Duke Tobin. We have Coach Matt Minnich, so he can be Zach Taylor or Lou Anarumo or whatever coach he decides he wants to be. I get to be the guy who thinks about quarterbacks and skill players a lot, Mike Brown. And then we have 3 scouts, and Andrew's back there doing social media stuff. So that's kind of the premise, the way it works. And with that, I say we get going with the draft board. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. So I gave these guys about almost a week ago, maybe 5 days ago. I said, hey, here's the board. Here's the list of players. We each individually had our own boards. From there, over the last couple of days, guys, I didn't say this, but I think you probably saw it if you looked at the document. I've taken a consensus of what we've all put together individually and came up with a score for each one of those. So as you can see here on the 1A tier, there are 2 guys that unanimously we all said were blue chip players, and that was Will Anderson and Christian Gonzalez. So there should be no discussion there. There should be no argument. We all believe they were tier 1 guys. After that, 3 out of the 5 of us said that Devin Witherspoon, Tyree Wilson, and Paris Johnson Jr. were blue chip players. Now, there may be 2 of us in here that want to disagree. If there's anyone that wants to make that case and feels that strongly enough that they should not be 1A players, this is your chance to make that argument. For me, I didn't have Tyree Wilson or Paris Johnson in there, but I don't feel that strong enough to override 3 other guys on the staff here. And let's be honest, neither of them are probably going to be there anyway. So if anyone wants to make the argument, now would be the time, unless we're going to move on to the 1B players after this. Unless there, again, also, if you feel strongly that someone is missing from this, this is your time to speak as well.
Jalen Carter. I think he's the best player in the draft.
Get him, Sands. Why?
Well, when I watch on film, he's the best player in the draft. Now we don't are not actually able to meet these people, know all the off the field stuff, know any questions there. I know the pro day, everything wasn't, perfect, but man, when you watch him, he's better than Will Anderson. Like, Will Anderson's really, really good as a pass rusher. Give me Jalen Carter all day. And he's young. He's a 3-tech. He would be exactly what the Bengals need if he somehow did start to fall, which not out of all these guys, if Jalen Carter was there, not out of the realm of possibility if there is some off the field stuff. So that would be the one guy I really push to, as long as everything checks out. Jalen Carter, that's a 1A guy to me. That is probably 30+% chance he's a star. You don't find that outside of 1A.
So, Sands, I believe you and Jared were the only two to have him in 1A, and everyone else had him in 1B. I had him
in 1C.
I had him in 1C as well.
Right.
Cowards.
All right.
So I think with that, that's why his average actually comes out if you go to the next sheet. Not that you guys have to. Jalen Carter is number 8 overall for the highest score on our list. So I think there is at least some concern or at least some awareness. And I think he's still going to fall based on the score and the rank here in the 1B tier, and would likely still be best player available at any point if he was still there at 28. So do you feel strongly enough that to go any further than that, or would you be okay? Would any of you guys be okay? Jared, you mean the other one that put him as a 1A. Would you guys be okay, or could you agree to him being a 1B?
I'm cool with him being a 1B. I understand all of the off-field stuff, but Sands is right. That's the on-the-field play is 1A, and it is the top in this class.
Yeah, it's not just 1A, the best in the class for me. But yeah, we can move on because he probably won't be there.
Right. Okay, so the next grouping of guys we have here that graded the highest are going to be Peter Skoronski, Bijan Robinson, Jalen Carter, Broderick Jones, Darnell Wright, and Joey Porter Jr. So I'm going to highlight these guys and get them over on the next page. I think almost all of us had them in the range of a 1B. Let me put them on there for us so we can see it. The next guy that's close, though, that I wanted to bring up to see how everyone feels is Jackson Smith and Jigba would be the next highest graded player. And I know we've got some trench guys that didn't even grade him, but I used an average of if 4 out of the 5 of us graded him, I averaged the 4 and then placed it for the 5th guy so that it would put him in there. So I just updated the board here for 1B. Does anybody have any qualms with the players that are on 1B or think anyone definitely should be added to that group? Again, the next couple guys are Njigba, Banks, Cansey, and next that would be another tier under. So we'll start with these guys, and then maybe there's like 3 other we'll nominate after that.
No Njigba love, really? Come on, guys.
I have no problem with the guys that are there. I've got a couple of edges in that tier for me. Lucas Van Ness and Miles Murphy, I feel both belong in that same tier.
I agree with you about Murphy. Van Ness feels like more of a project to be in 1B for me.
Yeah, I think I would put Van Ness more in 1C. He's probably going to go like top 10 to top 15 based off all the talk about him, but I think that he's probably more of a 1C for me. And
that's where he should come. Based on how we all the consensus there, it looks like Van Ness will be a 1C for us. So the guys we should talk about, though, are Jackson Smith and Jigba, Banks, or Cansey.
I'm fine with Banks and Cansey getting put in there, although I did have them both 1C for different concerns. Although, no, I had Cansey 1B. So,
So if we get to 28 and Cansey's there and Joey Porter Jr.'s there, you guys aren't jumping at Cansey, big trench guys.
He's just built like a meatball.
Come on.
Yeah,
you guys love
meatballs. I put Cansey there.
I mean, that's to me what 1C is it's first round talents who have obvious problems. And that's why I like Jalen Carter has some obvious problems. Cansey has some obvious problems. They're different problems, but there's a definite flaw there. And to me, these first half of the first round guys should be pretty much clean slate picks.
Okay, we'll go right down the list then so that we can keep it organized. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba should be in the 1B.
Okay.
I think
I agree.
I'm
You
sure
know,
He's the best receiver in
I
the class
agree.
by far.
right. And if he's
I-
available at 28, we're picking him, right? I mean, of the guys that, or are we, because the thing is, we got to separate them from the 1C guys. Are we taking Jackson Smith and Jigba over Kalijah Kancey?
Yes.
I don't
I
think I
would.
would.
I don't think I am.
Yeah.
I don't think I am
Uh,
either.
Joey Porter
it's
Jr.?
just
I had them in the same
it's just
bucket.
it's a need thing. You know, I mean,
We have to
Yeah,
factor need. Yes.
yeah, they got Boyd for 2 more years. If Boyd was in the last year of
They
his
have-
contract,
he's
it's
in the
a
last year of his
conversation. You know, if you flip Boyd and T. Higgins,
Matt,
on
he's
the
in the
contract,
last year of his deal.
Yeah.
What's that?
He's in the last year of his deal.
Boyd
Boyd
is
and
2.
Higgins. No, Boyd has 1.
Oh,
No,
geez,
just one more year.
My bad. I'm completely off. Okay, well then that is a different
I think-
conversation. Sorry.
Unless I'm remembering incorrectly, the only wide receiver under contract for 2024 is Jahmyr Chase. So that is,
Correct.
I mean, you
No
can
Turner
assume
Irwin?
that Higgins
Okay,
is going to be
geez, I thought
tagged,
the end of the year.
but
Saints.
All right, then I am 100% on board.
but even if Higgins is tagged, we only have 2 guys. So
I think Chris Evans' deal lasts so long.
And that's why I think I would be comfortable putting Njigba, Banks, and Kancey in the 1B tier because they grade right on the line. So most of us had them in that range or close enough that we can from there sort the 1B tier. Do you know what I'm saying? So that we can say, all right, maybe we won't take Njigba over Kancey. We can slot them after that. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
good with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
the
we could,
upside
just,
on Kancey's enough. He's, like I said, there's obvious problems, but the upside's enough to push him.
Great.
we could do the Bijan argument too. You guys are taking Jackson Smith and Jigba over Bijan Robinson.
Well, I'm
They're
not.
both there. You're not? I
Bijan's
would.
1A.
I think I'd go Bijan.
And I love Bijan, but Jackson Smith and Jigba is like, ugh. For Burrow.
Okay.
So,
For,
but it's close. The point is to Joe, it's close. So 1B is just this huge bucket of players.
Mhm.
So before we move on to 1C, I want to scroll back up, James, if we can, to 1A. Make sure we have 1A ranked properly and make sure there's nobody between A and B that should be swapped.
that's perfect for me.
Yeah, give it a second to look. Would we take Tyree Wilson over Paris Johnson Jr.?
Probably. Well,
Yeah,
I think
we
the
would.
Bengals would. Yeah.
I mean, I would go Paris Johnson Jr., but that's projection into right tackle too. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is the flipping
I
sides.
think I'd take
I think
Devin
we would.
Witherspoon over Christian Gonzalez, even though everyone had Gonzalez higher. He's got the size, but I think as a cornerback, he's a lot more ready.
Yeah, Gonzalez is 20 years old. I mean, he does definitely. I think some of his projection is him reaching his peak, which could be extremely high.
Even if he has a lower floor than Witherspoon, I think the ceiling with the Santana hips is enough to keep him up there.
I agree.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
make too much of a stake over one
I
spot.
mean,
so.
yeah, he's smooth, he's big, he's long. Like, he just fits them to a T. I mean, Witherspoon's a hitter, so he fits them in that
Oh,
way.
yeah, he is.
I would go Gonzalez. I would put Paris. Well, like the first two and Paris Johnson are the only 3 that I had in my 1A tier. So that would
Right.
be the order I would go with those guys. I would put Wilson last out of that group.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have no particular problem with anybody except Wilson. I don't think there's enough production there to warrant that spot. So I would definitely put Johnson in front of Paris. That'd be the only thing I'd fight for.
How about our trench guys here, our resident trench guys, Jared and Mike? You guys, how would you swap these guys at all? Meaning Wilson and Johnson.
No, I think Wilson has just I don't know, man. They're the same to me. They're both super. They need a lot of refinement, but that you don't get those body types and explosion and athletic profile that come around very often. So it's hard for me to argue one way or the other because they're so similar.
Only reason I keep it is it's a projection to move Paris Johnson to right tackle from left tackle.
Fair.
It adds a little bit of doubt.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
Okay, then let's move on to the 1B list, and I think this one's going to cause the most debate. We'll probably spend the most time ranking these guys and making sure we've got them correct. Let's just start with the first 3 guys and try and see if we can order them and move on from there, and then reset the board. I personally would probably take Jalen Carter over any of these 3, and then
Yes.
Skoronski, and then Bijan over, because I'm looking at positional value. And I think Carter has the highest upside of all these guys. I think he's a better player of all these guys. I don't have to. And Skoronski, to me, I would rather play him at guard, and so I don't have a problem with him at tackle, but he's a emergency scenario. He'd be a guard. So I would put it Carter, Skoronski, and then Robinson. Anyone feel free to chime in afterwards.
Nope, that seems right to me.
Yep.
Do we feel confident that, obviously, we're talking about the Bengals. Do we feel confident they would want to take Broderick Jones and Skoronski over Darnell Wright, knowing that Wright has the experience playing right tackle and Skoronski is going to be more of a projecting inside?
I think we can get to that once we get these first three. Like if we put Skoronski number 2 or even number 3 here, if anyone wants Bijan over Skoronski, because I think James would make that argument maybe, then we can probably say, hey, how would we rank Skoronski, Broderick Jones, and Darnell Wright afterwards? If we're okay with swapping Carter to number 1 here, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Just assume that I go with the skill guy.
I'm just assuming here.
Just assume.
Trying to cover our bases.
All I know is Joey Porter Jr. ahead of Jack, and I know we're going to get to that.
The moving piece
Comedy
here
hour.
is Bijan. Would we
Yeah.
take Bijan over Broderick Jones or Darnell Wright?
I was going to
Probably
ask
not.
you to move Broderick down.
I think I would. I know the value of a running back, but
I mean,
think
I wouldn't take a running back in the first round at all, even Bijan.
He's just looking
he's
off
the
field
only he's the only guy that can do
Everything
everything
we
the
need.
Bengals hoped Joe Mixon would do when they picked him 48th overall.
what do you dream of the
Be
Bengals
a
running
third
back
down
doing?
back that has the home run ability.
Yeah,
all of
make
those
guys
things. Like, no
miss.
one else in this class
Right.
can do it.
And then the one thing that just keeps him up there for me is just he could pass protect. It was shocking to me
Mhm.
when I watched him and he could pass protect. It's like there's no projection with him. Like, is he going to be off the field in 2 minutes or third down? No, like this guy's going to be on the field for those as the explosive plays to the run game. I think I'd take him over those 2 tackles, but I think I'm going to be the lone dissent.
Matt, you look like you got something to say.
Well, no, I mean, I'm really going to agree on the Bijan take that, like, that's what you're missing with the other guys is in terms of a guy who can come in right away and play. Who can come in right away and do that? Probably his teammate a little bit later, but there aren't a lot of guys. Maybe Charbonnet, but that's the big thing with college running backs that doesn't translate right away is the pass protection, and you're getting it with him. And because we're in the situation we're in, because P. Ryan left, if we had P. Ryan and no Mixon, you can take whoever you want. But when you get Mixon and no P. Ryan, you're looking at a 3-back rotation with Travion Williams, and like there's a lot of there's a lot of pieces in there if you don't get a guy that can pass protect too. So I mean, I think that's a valid point. I would still go with both of those linemen in front of him, but I think it is a valid point.
James, you want to chime in here?
Yeah,
I know
but
you
believe it or
love
not-
Bijan.
No, I do. I'm also sick about talking about offensive line,
Mhm.
and I said like in a negative way, and that's happened for the better part of a decade now, since 2016. And so even with Witz last year. So to me, if Broderick Jones or Peter Skoronski fell to 28, you would dance to the podium and or make Roger do that, at least dance to the podium. So I'm okay with having those guys positional value wise ahead of Bijan because it makes sense. And as far as size wise, I mean, this team, maybe they've turned a corner because they started to consider size a bit more recently, right? Jonah, they're like, left tackle. I think they might have Jones ahead of Skoronski because they're not going to take a guard this early. If they project him to be a guard long term, then I think that they would go with the tackle.
Well, now that we have the O-lineman, so let's say we agree we're going to take O-line over Bijan, right? We're going to take the premium position, hopefully play with the strength of the draft class and get our running back that we want later, right? We have these 3 clustered offensive linemen. This probably goes with the consensus of how they're labeled right now. Although we did have Broderick Jones and Darnell Wright both at 45 overall in our amongst us. Would we want to? How would we split these? How would we rank these? Are they ranked correctly? Does anybody want to swap a guy up? Would we take Darnell Wright over any of these guys?
I would
I think
take
Skoronski's
Darnell
the
Wright
bottom.
over all of them.
Yeah, I agree. I'd flip him and Skoronski.
Yeah.
I'd
Actually,
definitely
I'd
flip
put-
Wright and Jones.
I would just put him
I'd
Darnell
actually
Wright
bump
above
Carter down below
Skoronski
that
and
too.
have
but-
Jones last.
I think I'd still have Jones above Skoronski just because they probably project Skoronski inside, and then you're talking about offensive guard versus offensive tackle. Even if I think Skoronski's tape is way better than Jones, when you're talking offensive tackle versus offensive guard, it just completely changes the conversation.
Now, this is an extreme scenario, though. If we end up with Skoronski and Broderick Jones both on the board at 28, like, awesome, great, right? But we're looking at potentially, I think Skoronski could be an all-pro guard. And I think, if he's Zach Martin, and I know that's like the highest bar, but, I mean, that's what you're projecting with a guy that's this good moving inside.
Well, if he's Joe Thuney.
Sure,
I still think
if he's Zach Martin, though, are they going to pay him? Or is he going to play 5 years and then walk?
Isn't that the same issue at tackle? I mean, they just
paid Orlando Brown, though. His contract's going to be up after this rookie contract. They could pay a tackle, but they might not want to pay a guard.
I don't think Jones or anywhere as clean of a prospect as Skoronski. And I know the positional value is different. But Jones, I mean, there's a decent bust chance there. Like a lot of that is projection. Right? I don't see the bust chance as much, but you're looking at Skoronski as more of I think he's got the higher ceiling, even if it is at guard.
And I'll go back to the Quentin Nelson draft, and I know it's different, but the Bengals are like, oh, he could be a great tackle. Like
they want guys to get the tackle.
That's how they felt. They were like, oh, so they may look at Skoronski and be like, well, we'll just try him at tackle, and he may end up really good there. In worst case, we'll kick him inside. So it wouldn't shock me if he was. I'm not trying to contradict myself. It would not shock me if he was first on their board because he is a cleaner prospect, like you said, Sans.
Yeah.
He would be an upgrade at two positions. He could either be your left guard or right tackle. I don't like it. It would just be getting your best 5 on the field if you got someone like Skoronski.
But either way, it's an adjustment. I mean, either he's bumping in from tackle to guard, or he's going to the other side of the formation. It's the same thing that they faced with Jackson Carman. It's the same thing that they faced with Cordell Volson with a little bit better results. So, I mean,
you're moving
maybe that means he's their type, because that's what they do is they take guys and make them play the other position on the other side of the field. But
that is true for Broderick as well, though, right? Because he played most of his career at left tackle.
Left.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's true.
The only plug and play guy on this list is Darnell Wright because of that. But is he better?
I think we can agree that Darnell Wright should be the top of the 3. That seems to be what everyone agrees on.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think he's a better player. I think he's a better fit as well.
He's had the cleanest pre-draft process. Like he was like projected 35th.
Outside of fighting with Willie, yeah.
He was like 35th on some like mocks months ago, and then he goes to the combine, and I looked and I'm like, oh. I think I text Joe about it. I'm like, Darnell Wright's not even going to be there at 28, and that was 2 months ago. So, yeah, I think. Having him first, Skoronski second, and Broderick Jones third, I'd be comfortable with.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I definitely like Wright over Jones. I think Jones.
Yeah, me too.
I think Jones could be the last O-lineman drafted out of this group. Good upside, but honestly, he's not there yet. He is a project, and you move him anyway, so it doesn't really kill it. To me, he needs development time at left tackle or right tackle. It wouldn't matter to me, but I do think the floor is the lowest of these 3 guys, and so I'm in agreement with you guys. If you're looking for plug and play guy, if Skoronski's still there, then I probably got his concerns why he's still there also. So like, every other team has now passed up on him. So I have no problem putting it right. Skoronski, Jones, if you guys are in agreement.
Sure. Yep.
All right.
Let's do it. Here we go.
Great.
After you fix this next group, this is my time.
This is tough. This one, I think it gets even tighter here. So I don't know yet where Bijan's going to fall in this. I think he's going to be the sliding scale of this entire group. So we'll just move on to the next grouping and say, would we take Bijan over Njigba? I think that's an easy one. Would we take Bijan? If Njigba and Bijan are both on the board, who are we taking?
I am willing to dissent. I would take
Njigba.
Njigba.
And I love Bijan.
Wow, I did not expect this.
I think
no one
one
loves wide receivers more than me.
The one thing with JSN is just I feel like it gives you the what I would like with the Bengals is for Boyd's eventual replacement to be able to play, and maybe he can play outside, but to be inside-outside versatile so that you can have more formations when you're 2x2 to put Ja'Marr Chase into the slot to get him away from the cloud coverage and everything else. I don't know if JSN does that for you. And that's the one thing that's stopping me there. Whereas Bijan, I mean, top 5 player in the class. I know he's a running back, but this is Saquon Barkley type falling to you. I would take that. I would take that over JSN. But I feel like I'm lone dissent, and I'm not going to fight too hard about it because they're both great players.
I think I would take Bijan over Njigba. And I say this because I'm confident in the Bengals' ability to draft receiver, number one. So that is never an issue with me. But even though they've drafted pretty well at back for the most part, when they've identified a guy in the first or second round, they've hit more than they missed. Still, I think Bijan, he helps. Man, I don't know. As I'm about to say this out loud, I'm contradicting myself in my mind. I was going to say Bijan helps free up Chase and Higgins more than Jackson Smith and Jigba does. And then I'm like, as I'm thinking, I'm like, no, he doesn't. I don't know that he does.
Honestly, it's hey, Joe, you want JSN? He'd be like,
but don't you think he would say yes about Bijan?
Well, hell yeah. This is a best case scenario. This is heaven for the Bengals to have to deal with one of these, but
I mean, to me,
I think it's in Jigba.
The value of the running back position is the guys that can receive, and so to me, like the guys we really talk about making a difference are basically slot receivers anyway, but they're slot receivers with longer shelf lives usually, that you're more likely to sign to a second contract and to not be pissed off when you do. So, that to me is where it falls in. I think we're talking about the same sort of thing. I'm like, does Bijan running the ball, make up for the fact that you're going to get less out of him in the pass game probably than a slot receiver who runs great routes and has pretty good size at 6 foot tall, because that's where we're falling off a cliff here in this draft, is really with slot, finding a slot receiver who's not 5'8", and that's going to happen pretty quickly. So I mean, if that's something that's of value to us, it's important to us, if we want an in-house replacement for Boyd coming out of this draft, I think you got to put a higher priority on Smith and Jigba. And you're not going to find a Bijan anywhere else. But you can Frankenstein a backfield a lot better than you can do at the receiver position. And we want that guy, who's got the size and can come in and can block better than these 5 foot 870-pound guys and make a contribution. So he's doing some extra things in there as well, just like Bijan's doing the pass protection. So I think it's Smith and Jigba personally.
And they can keep their offense with the 3 wides. You can keep running the 11 for the foreseeable future. T's locked up for at least 2 years. Jahmyr's under team control for a long time, even though people don't want to look at it that way. He's got that 5th-year option, then tags. And then you have this guy on a rookie contract. Like, I just think team building wise, even if you have, lost T down the line, it wouldn't be as big of a nightmare because you have this guy who is a freak. He's the only receiver, by the way, that I would even consider taking over Bijan Robinson, just to be clear. So This isn't a wide receiver thing for me. I just think Smith and Jigba's like the one dude in this class that I'd really want at that position.
Okay, then raise your hand for Bijan if you're taking Bijan over Jackson Smith and Jigba. Damn, you're not helping us here by going 3-3.
Oh,
should we pull in Andrew for the title?
Yeah, Andrew might have or we let Chat pick it.
Elizabeth Blackburn or social.
All right,
media.
Elizabeth.
There you go, Brian Montana. Here we go. Here's your moment.
Okay, what do you got? Jackson Smith and Jigba or Bijan Robinson? You've heard me talk way more about Bijan. So
I know. Bijan. See you later, guys.
All right.
That's how you do it.
Fine.
I'm not mad. I mean, dude, either way.
It is what it is.
I will say this. Mike Brown gets final say. So if he's there at 28, we might overrule Andrew Fox Miller there.
Well, that's what. I think that would. That's how it goes to the owner, right? In those scenarios, like, all right, who do you want? We're both.
I love Bijan too. It's okay.
Well, the idea here is it's 2 players we all really like that we would take on this roster and think would help the offense. So really, I don't see that scenario playing out. But it was nice to explore because that is not something even in any of these mock draft simulators where I've had to even debate to myself who I would take. So let's look at the next grouping. Similar, all defensive players, and we'll figure out if they should go over the skill positions on offense afterwards. Let's make sure we get these 3 correct. And that's Joey Porter Jr., Deontay Banks, and Kalijah Cansey. Does anybody want to swap these around? If it was me, it's tough. But I think I'd take Cansey over this group of corners.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a more rare skill that he has. You're again 3 technique, or pass rushing 3 technique. We're not going to get one of those after the first round. And I think both Banks and Porter are somewhat locked into from what they did in college. They're somewhat locked in to basically pretty much playing man.
Yeah.
So learning zone is going to be an adjustment for them. So I think Cansey is a little bit better of a fit for our defense right now. Even though I don't,
Interesting, because
his size, I don't think he's a great fit. But
they play all that slow
he's a
play,
little
gap
cute.
and a half. That makes me think Cansey's not holding up gap and a half to taking on double teams, things like that. So if they're going to ask him to play like that, I don't know if that's a clean fit. But at the same time, they had Larry Ogunjobi 2 years ago. They let him kind of freelance, run up the field. I'm fine taking Cansey over them. They're same tier.
If they could throw Cansey at edge a little bit too, if they needed to,
they did with BJ Hill.
Put him at the 5. You put him at the 5. You put Tupou at the 3 in the 3-4 stuff, or they work.
Jared, what do you think?
I don't know, man. I have Cansey as a 1C player because of his size. I don't think he really fits Lou's defense because, like Mike was saying, that he plays gap and a half and he has the interior to kind of crush the pockets. I don't think they're going to give Cansey that kind of free reign they gave Ogunjobi, because Ogunjobi was at least big. And I also disagree that you can't get a pass rushing 3 tech later in the draft. They've shown it's one of the things they're best at is finding a defensive lineman later on. So I think it wouldn't be as high a priority as a corner that could come in and compete for a starting job.
I was going to make the argument that the D-tackle class isn't great and that the pass rushers kind of fall off pretty quickly. Now, Jared, you've watched a lot of guys. If you've got some favorites on day 2 or even early day 3, you could convince me to say the corners are better. But to be honest with you, maybe I put Cansey over these 2 corners because I don't think these are the 2 best corners remaining. It's just because I think Forbes is better than these guys. So I get to the point of, and when we solidify this 1B, I'm going to nominate Forbes to go in this group because I do think he's better than them.
I second that notion. I think Forbes is better than Porter and Banks. I think Banks and Forbes are better than Porter.
And I would be okay with you putting Forbes over Cansey as well.
I don't think as you guys were praising him, he just had a pick 6. I think
another one.
Another one. So I agree.
I know Mike doesn't feel the same way. I've seen his grades on our spreadsheet. He doesn't see Forbes.
He doesn't like the weight.
It's not just the weight. That's my thing, is that all we can ever talk about is the weight because he's 160 pounds. Like, nobody wants to actually talk about as a prospect. It's, are you cool with the weight? Are you not cool with the weight? I think he's got amazing ball skills, and I know you value that more than I do. My thought is, when I watch his base in press, when I watch him get overly aggressive, it's all the people that make fun of Trevon Diggs. Like, you're drafting a similar player.
You're getting Trevon Diggs. Yeah.
You're getting Trevon Diggs at maybe best because Trevon Diggs is able to get all those interceptions at the NFL level. Forbes, I think, is going to give up some plays. I think when he plays cover 2, he's too aggressive and doesn't help his safeties at all. But at the same time, like, all those things are teachable. You don't teach ball skills. You don't teach the ability to run back a pick 6. So I get the idea behind it. Just for me, I don't think it's a clean evaluation. I know he was an awesome athlete. That was at 160 pounds, and you need him to be 180 pounds, which is still pretty light. That's Deontay Banks, that's Cam Smith size, who I'm sure we'll talk about later. But that's just me, lone dissent. I know I'm going to get outruled, but I just wanted to let my opinion known that I think there are technical issues with Emmanuel Forbes that have nothing to do with his weight.
Matt, you watch DBs a lot. What do you think?
I go Banks, Forbes, Porter, probably. I think. But Forbes is closer to the Banks, and vice versa. I think you're getting a little bit more of a hitter and a better man player in Banks. But we talked about this, Joe. Like, Forbes is just so smart. Like, it's not that he's like he takes some risks sometimes, but I think part of that's coaching too. I think a lot of stuff probably comes into the game plan that they're like, hey man, if you see this, do it, and if not, we'll live with the consequences. And there's value to that at the NFL level too. Like I'll trade explosive plays where the safety makes a tackle. For pick 6s. You know what I mean? For turnovers. There's more value to that, especially if you can play good defense in the red zone. So I think I think Forbes definitely belongs in this group. I think Porter's would be the bottom of those three. And yeah, you could talk me into either way on Banks and Porter, depending on what you want. I do want to say, I don't want to double back too much, but there's one thing I wanted to say about Cansey that we should consider here is DJ Reader coming up for a contract. So you got to think about the future with that as well. If you don't think Cansey is going to be a guy who can stop the run in the way that you want him to, then you have two options here. Either you stop the run in a different way, or you go with a guy who you think can do it, because you're probably going to lose DJ Reader. And if you lose DJ Reader and now you got Cansey in there and you think he's a liability in the run game, then I mean, you got a big problem in the middle of your defense, and this is the wrong division to have that problem in. So I think that's something to think about. But you've also got most of your linebackers coming up. You've only got Pratt. So, like, do you change the way you're playing defense? Do you change who your linebackers are, what your linebackers look like because of the way you're playing on your front?
And Lou could be gone at any time. So that is part of it as well. Like, if we don't always have to fit a guy to Lou's scheme because we don't know how much longer we'll have that. And I would also say about Cansey is you can be a run defender without two gapping or holding the guy up. You can create chaos. You can be a freelancer a bit when you have that first step penetrator the way he can be. And also, hopefully, he's not on the field for too many rundowns. Like, instantly, he should be one of our nickel pass rushers, right? And instantly be probably the best interior rusher they have, just being right off the streets from Pitt, because they don't have somebody with that athleticism. They don't have the versatility of a guy like that. You can put him and Sam Hubbard on some stunts, right? And let's cause some chaos on that side of it, because they really lack a pass rush on that side anyways. But if you let them work together, I think you can do a lot of things. But to Matt's point, is part of the appeal of having a Cansey type, slotting him next to DJ Reader and saying, all right, we've got the guy that big nose, that can eat space and two gap and do everything you want out of him nose tackle. You don't have to worry about that as much when you have Cansey, right? Because you put him next to him, and now you've got a pairing that, you can hopefully eat up the double teams with Reader and let Cansey freelance and do his thing. For me, I still would put Cansey over these corners. I think because the corners are a much greater debate. Again, I didn't get to say, but with Porter and Banks, I think both pick and choose when to play the run too much. And I know we shouldn't. Again, Lou's going to demand these guys to play the run. I think both are fine tacklers when they choose to be, but I think both have issues in that part of the game. And I don't have that issue with Forbes. He is smaller, so it affects him as a run defender, but at least he's willing to do it. And I think for me, a key when I watch corners is, are you aggressive on every single play no matter what? I don't care if it's a run. I don't care if it's a screen. I don't care if they're going the other way, and they're running away from you. Are you fighting with the receiver in front of you? Are you fighting to get to the ball? Are you racing down from the other side? And I don't see that with Banks. And honestly, Porter runs hot and cold as well. That's why I have Forbes over them. It isn't just the ball skills, which I think he dwarfs them as well in that phase. And again, Bengals play a lot of zone. I think Forbes.
It's a size joke.
So what I'm hearing from you, Joe, is Cam Smith should be in this conversation with those.
Cam Smith fits, man. He fits, and people probably should watch him. And we'll get to him. I think he ends up in 1C for us, but we need to rank these guys and move on, though.
I feel like all this quarterback talk proves why Cansey should be the top of these, on top of all these cornerbacks, because we could mention 7 names at cornerback who we could talk ourselves into, maybe even 10 names at 28 or 60. But how many pass rushing DTs can we talk about at 60?
That's a good point, Patrick.
Jared,
and it's not just good. It's not just good. They're fits.
I'm lower on Porter.
There's 6 foot long guys everywhere you look in this class. It's ridiculous.
I'm lower on Porter, I think, than consensus. I would do Cansey, Forbes, Banks, and then Porter.
I agree.
That's how I would have it.
I'm good with that.
I'm over.
And I love Forbes because he's this playmaking.
I know you disagree.
But he's at corner. All right. But Cansey's a lot of fun. So
are we taking the grouping of Bijan, Jackson Smith, and Jigba over any of these defenders?
Yes.
Yes.
All of them.
We gotta solidify that. There is a scenario that Bijan's there and Cansey's there. Who are you taking?
Bijan. Cleaner.
Really?
I think so. There is.
I
Whenever I see the question marks with a guy, when I'm at that point where I see question marks with this guy and like serious questions, built like a meatball, 280 pounds, he's awesome. He's a very fast meatball, but there's a big bust chance there too, though, because if he isn't the pass rusher you expect, he doesn't really give you a ton of value. I think it's a clean evaluation. He is the pass rusher you expect because I don't see another guy in this class with the feel for how offensive linemen are moving like Cansey has. But I think I would just go Bijan because he adds, at least for this year, for next year, probably more value. And now you want to have the conversation about 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line. I think that's a reasonable debate. But I do think that Bijan enters the league as an upper echelon starting running back. And what's the floor?
That he's really good.
Yeah.
Right.
The floor is probably just because of the offense and when he came to the team, like compared to Mixon, is better than what you've gotten since who? I mean, you're going back a long ways, I would say, as the floor. Because I think he can do everything Mixon would have been able to do in 2017 when you drafted him, had it been this offensive line and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Yeah. But isn't that to the point that you can find a guy like that in round 2? Maybe not in this class.
Mixon's a special case, and that was like the best running back class ever. So
Yeah.
True. True.
I think
I would go Cansey just out of scarcity of the position and being able to get that. I think if you're
are we
taking
sure Cansey could tackle Robinson?
not with those arms.
Sorry,
I should say,
sorry.
Bijan also fumbles in his career once out of every 75 touches. We're talking about every 2 to 3 games he's fumbling.
running backs also have one of the highest injury rates. So the floor is actually he sees the field 3 games a year.
All right.
That's a fair point.
Janet Carter.
And Cansey could see the field 6 games a year.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
what are
fair,
we doing?
but we're talking risk. Running backs are injured more than other positions because they're taking the hits every time they touch the ball.
Oh, Cansey's gonna take a ton of hits. He's inside and he's small.
Cansey's gonna get squished.
You got to touch him first.
He goes right underneath. He snakes down.
Both guys you got to touch first, right?
Okay, then. All right. Let's say we keep Bijan where he is then. Are we taking Jackson Smith and Jigba over any of these defensive players?
Again, I would
go.
move
I'd
Cansey.
go
in front.
Cansey over JSN.
I would too.
I would
I
too.
would not.
I'm cool with it. I don't know.
I would not. He's the one guy.
So Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cansey are on the board. You want them to go Jackson Smith and Jigba,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Wow.
I'd go Cansey.
Tell
I know
Joe
I just
Burrow
talked about the
that
meatball, but
you
he's
were
a very
looking at
fast
Jackson
meatball.
Smith and Jigba, who's very familiar with his game, the Ohio State tie. Watched him last year, of course. Heck, the wide receivers coach at Ohio State says he's the second best Ohio State wide receiver he's coached outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. So think about Garrett Wilson, all these guys that have come out the past couple of years. Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to tell your second best quarterback on the planet, hey, let's pass on this super elite weapon. I would just
Here's what I would say to Burrow, though. What happened on the last 2 plays of each season? What happened? All-world athlete defensive tackle took you down. Wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't you like that advantage? Wouldn't you want to be on the sideline for one of these times and not have to be driving down the field to win it? And maybe your defense or your D tackle can't be blocked?
if Jackson Smith and Jigba was on the Bengals roster in January, I wouldn't have had to cancel my flight to Phoenix.
You might be true. You might be right there.
I mean, you don't think he beats those Chiefs corners one-on-one?
James, what was the biggest issue on the defense against the Chiefs, though? Getting a little pressure. Second best pass rusher being DJ Reader.
You're right. And so this is where the depth conversation comes in, because there are no wide receivers after JSN to me.
I really
But you
disagree with
have
that.
to have one.
I really disagree with that. I don't think it's that bad.
This is the worst wide receiver class in a decade.
There's a guy. He just doesn't play slot yet. But once if he goes to the right place and they figure out he's a slot, there's a guy that can get in the third.
Of course, you can find
Iowa
that.
State.
I'm not saying that, but not potential game-breaking type guys with this seal. Like I don't think there's many. And maybe one emerges out of this class. It could happen, but The NFL
No, I mean, you also have to
isn't
think
a
of,
fan of this wide receiver.
you know, we're talking about. I mean, is Smith and Jigba going to take guys away from Higgins and Chase on the outside? Is he going to open up opportunities for them? Because with Kancey, you're getting that. Because with Kancey, you're getting the pressure up the middle that's going to force quarterbacks right into that closing pocket. I mean, that's what the sack numbers dropping off for Hubbard and Hendrickson this year. Like, that is absolutely tied to Larry Ogunjobi not being there. Like, that was something they were missing. So it's not your interior pass rush helps what is perceived as your outside pass rush as well. And especially with where they play, because they like those big, long guys. They don't like benders. They like folders. They like guys that are closing that pocket. And you can close your pocket, but if you don't have that pressure coming up the middle, you know, they're still going to have time to get rid of the ball. If you got that guy coming up the middle, like you'll see sack numbers increase from the outside guys too.
You're not going to go through Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, and Joe Tooney in the middle. You're going to have to go around those guys. So if you want to get to a Super Bowl every year, I think Kancey would be the runaway favorite over JSN.
I would say that wasn't Joseph Ossai lining up at DT and he had to chase down Mahomes and eventually push him out of bounds. Does Kancey get there first? Does Kancey cleanly beat Trey Smith instead of BJ Hill, fighting that almost hold rip? Does Kancey get off that? Does Kancey crush that pocket a little bit more? Can he break free of them, get free completely, and turn that corner and make that sack? He would be valuable.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not debating he would be valuable.
I'm debating who would we pick.
I'm not. I would pick JSN because, again, let's look at the slots. I think JSN has his ceiling, right? Which that's what we're looking at here, and we're talking about that with Kancey, is better than any slot. I'm trying to think of my lifetime before I do it, but I think he would be better than TJ. I think he's twitchier.
Oh, you're thinking Bengals guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking he's like Amon-Ra St. Brown ceiling-wise, but
Ceiling?
I'm still thinking that
Amon-Ra St. Brown? I think he's better.
St. Brown's pretty good.
St. Brown
he is good.
And
he's the focal point of the offense. We've never seen JSN be the focal point of an offense. I mean, and he wouldn't have to be in Cincinnati, so it's a perfect landing spot for him. He's going to be the number 3, playing number 3 corners, just like he was at Ohio State when he had his big season. So it is a good landing spot.
Any debate about he missed a lot of time this year?
It's true.
That's true.
I can't debate that one. He didn't.
All right, let's put it to a vote then. Those of you
go with Kancey, you trench guys.
I just want to see if it's accurate. It feels like it'll go Kancey. If you would take Kancey over Jackson Smith and Jigba, raise your hand.
It's 5-1.
Oh goodness!
I don't know why we spent so much goddamn time, man.
All right, guys, I'm here to do the tiebreaker. Oh, wait. Okay. All right, I'll be back. Let me know. It was really smart, by the way, doing even numbers for this. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
We wanted to include you.
Oh no, get Glenn in here. He's very.
I didn't know how many people we could fit.
So, all right, keep at it.
Okay.
You guys are going to regret this if they pass on Jackson Smith and Jigba.
For Elijah Kancey?
Yeah. Who's safer?
We got to move. We got to move.
JSN is safer. Okay, good. There we go. Let's keep
it. He is. Okay. We want to look at this 1B before we give it the once over, or the final pass, I should say. Not to bring up Jackson Smith and Jigba again, but would we take him before the corners?
Yeah, he toasted those corners. Well,
sure.
One of them.
He would toast all 3 of them.
Yeah, he would toast all 3 of them.
It's called a blender, Joe.
Because none of them are covering the slot.
On the outside. Put him outside then.
Yeah, scarcity. I'll take him.
Yeah, I agree. I think corner is so strong in this class that we can afford to put these guys a little bit lower. So, okay, we'll leave it then like this. Do we have any issues? And we've pretty much debated the entire list at this time. Does anybody have any issues strong enough to change 1B? And I added 1C guys now too, James, if you want to scroll down. Is there any other 1C guys
Andrew,
we need to throw up? Oh, okay, thank you, Andrew. Sorry. Any of the 1C guys that need to go into 1B?
I didn't realize Cam Smith wasn't a 1C.
I got to find out where he is. Sorry about that.
I was like, Cam Smith. I saw
probably my fault because I didn't put any of those guys on mine.
He's
So this is
Cam
for
Smith
those-
more than likely a 2-way based on the way it's going.
for those just joining us. So 1B, 1C now. This is like tail end of round one. So this is like
where we pick.
prime Bengals territory, 28th overall. This is the 1C bucket where, you know, they could be debating between a few guys. So this is prime. The JSN stuff is pie in the sky. Kancey could be there. I actually think that's semi-realistic, but let's look at these guys now.
Because James, you bring up a good point. If Joe or James or anybody here, if you want to maybe like as we go through each tier, just kind of briefly, like 10, 15 seconds, just kind of remind everyone what we're doing because people are joining, you know what I mean? Just kind of get them up to speed.
Yeah, we're setting the Bengals draft board. Joe's Duke Tobin. We got scouts and coaches, and I'm Mike Brown, and I like wide receivers, apparently. So that's what we're doing. And by apparently, I mean, hell yeah, Jackson Smith and Jigba is better than Kalijah Kancey. Let's keep it going.
I will say your line about what Burrow wants, the most famous one I can remember is Patrick Mahomes saying, "I want Clyde." That did not work out.
That's what you're trying to compare this to?
It could be if you're asking Burrow what he wants. He's not a scout. He's just
Hey,
like, yeah.
hey, by the way, you want to see Clyde thrive? All
No.
right.
Okay, guys.
Is
Is there anyone from 1C that needs to be in 1B? Are
I
there
would
any?
argue Nolan Smith.
Okay, I was going to elaborate. We need to. I'm going to eliminate some of these rows on 1B here so we can get a little closer of a look. Is there anyone in 1C that you would take over any of the few guys here in 1B?
No.
So would you
I
take
would-
Nolan Smith over Joey Porter or Deontay Banks?
Over Joey Porter. I would take him over both of those guys, yes.
Nolan
I'm
Smith
really
is,
high on Nolan Smith. I think he's he's fantastic in exactly what Georgia asked him to do. Everything you hear about him off the field is phenomenal. I think he's a high character, high motor guy. I just think he's one of those players that the Bengals would fall in love with, and he's a premium position. And I just think he'd be a good player for Cincinnati.
I think they might think he's too small.
I agree. He's number
I agree.
3 of those edges to me.
I think if you're
And the
going to
other
move
two,
an edge up,
I would take before at least Joey Porter. I could debate about the corners though too, but Murphy and Van Ness, I would argue before Nolan Smith.
Okay, so
if I was going to argue,
Dan's
somebody,
bringing up
Murphy.
size again.
Yeah,
Shocker.
that's right.
well, I would say the same arguments for the
Okay.
Kancey and Forbes issue is we would have to talk about Nolan Smith as well. He'd be small for an edge rusher at best. Hopefully he's Hassan Reddick, right? But he's only played about 400 snaps every year. He really, I mean, if we're going to put him as any type of full-time starter, he's never been close to that in that Georgia defense that just rotates, 3 waves of 5-star players at you.
I don't necessarily even think he's a scheme fit. I think as a player, he'd be a fun piece to put in there.
Well, let's not argue non-scheme fits, but so let's rank these edge guys in this tier then. So and then that'll help us maybe move a guy up. Do we have it? Lucas Van Ness, Miles Murphy, and then Nolan Smith. I feel like some people would like Miles Murphy more.
I would go Murphy.
I like
Murphy over
Murphy
Van
more.
Ness.
Okay, I'm not even going to argue then. If you guys, I think they're close, so I don't have a problem with that. We will move Murphy up over Van Ness. Does Murphy go then of this group? Is Murphy the best one of this group? Would we take him before Mayer, Kincaid, or Quentin Johnson?
I would.
I would, yeah.
The Bengals wouldn't,
Yeah.
but all right.
I would
Zero-
take Kincaid
Well, they'll
over
like
Murphy.
Murphy, though. They like Murphy.
I don't
The
care if
long
they
arms
like
and-
him. You
Yeah,
guys.
Kincaid's the one that gives me pause too.
I would
Yeah,
say
like, what
Kincaid
are we
over
doing?
Murphy.
He's 26 with a back injury.
I don't care if he's 26.
He's
so is their
also a
quarterback.
clear elite receiving talent at tight end, which is rare.
I actually
Burrow
don't.
was 23 when they
I
drafted.
feel like there
him.
is a little bit of question with Kincaid's profile in terms of he doesn't really release and keep himself clean that well, and he doesn't really change speed or try to run his routes and make them all look the same. He's just kind of one speed, go, go, go. And I think he's got awesome ceiling, but I do think there is a Gesicki floor, and Gesicki to me would kind of be a
A
bust. in the
small
first round.
Gesicki.
Yeah.
Because at least Gesicki's boxing dudes out and going up over him. You're not getting that. Kincaid has that ability because he does
Kincaid's
it
got
really
that.
well. Right, but he's 6'3". He's not.
So if you
6'.
want somebody that does have that height, has the same kind of floor, just wait a couple days and take Kuntz, right? And then you get the Gesicki height too, right?
I think enough of a debate here that it doesn't sound like we should push any of these 1C guys to 1B, because it does sound like a few of us would at least argue that we would take a tight end over Murphy, or maybe even rank the tight ends, one of them maybe for need-wise, over Murphy. Is that correct? Or do we mostly agree that Murphy should be in the 1B? Because honestly, I don't. I think he's got one move. He's got the long arm versus the run and the pass. That's it. And he's kind of clunky as an athlete. He's kind of has no counter, really no, pass rush plan on half of his rushes in a defensive line that's pretty loaded. And when I watched him, I thought more of a 2A, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't push him up to a 1B where I've got to have him over Kincaid, over Mayer, over even Nolan Smith and Lucas Van Ness. I think this is the grouping. I think this is right to keep him in here.
Once we start talking
I wouldn't
about
push
it,
anyone up.
So,
I'm fine with it. I'm really just talking about him and Porter, to be honest with you. So it's one guy.
Matt's just low on Porter, I think.
I am too.
I'm low on Porter too.
I'm
Well, maybe
definitely
move
below.
him down.
Should we move Porter down then? That is the next question.
I
If
would-
we don't want to
I'll
move
tell
these
you
guys
this.
up,
If the Bengals are faced with Kincaid and Porter and they take Porter, I'm not going to be nice in the column or on Locked On or here or wherever.
this
I
is
think that would be
exactly what I wanted to hear. To be honest with you, this is what I thought we'd run into. I agree. I think Porter's a little overrated by the consensus. I think he should. There's a chance. I've said this before. I think Banks and Porter could be there at 28. I think teams may take Forbes over these guys. And they say, because if Forbes was 180, he's clearly going over these two, in my opinion,
Right.
without even question. Which makes me think I should, and I like Banks more than Porter. Maybe we can start to rank Murphy over Porter if we put Porter in 1C.
I got like 3 other guys I put over Porter in 1C, so I'm with it.
Yeah.
I think moving Porter to 1C is fair.
I'm fine with it
Lone
because
descent.
Kincaid's
Lone descent.
I always am.
Okay. Now we got to rank some of these 1C guys then. Let me get that correct. So I moved them down. Now let's scroll down to 1C. Andrew, for me. Not too far. And then zoom in a little bit if you want to on these guys. Okay. Of the tight ends, let's rank the tight ends first then. We can group them together real quick and then figure out
I'm
what
going to
we
be on
want.
my own here, I think.
Yeah, figure out
maybe
what we want to do at tight end.
I get you back, James.
Yeah, I think you do.
Kincaid or Mayer? Does anybody have a strong opinion of the two?
Yeah. Yes.
Kincaid.
Strong.
Okay.
I'd go Mayer.
I'd go Mayer too.
I go Mayer as well.
Okay, we got 3-3.
We got
All
somebody
right.
here.
We got our guy.
So here's the thing. So it's kind of the opposite. Mayer's safe. He's
Yes.
viewed as the safe, super clean prospect, was super productive all the time, was great at Covcat. Like everyone remembers him in Northern Kentucky here in Cincinnati. I get it because I remember it. And when he went to Notre Dame and started to play right away. But in this offense, it'd be one thing if like Baker Mayfield was the quarterback and they were doing a bunch of play action. And I just think Burrow and Kincaid, it's just this, you give him this elite weapon. And I think that's what he would be in this offense. Not every offense. Like he's mocked to the Packers. I don't know how he would be with Jordan Love. I think landing spot matters a lot. And I think if Kincaid's there at 28, just imagine. There's no more 1 year prove it deals for some of these tight ends because he's going to get 800 yards and be a game changer for Burrow.
James brings up a good point that I've been thinking lately. Maybe it's Anarumo and how much people love him, and I do too right now, right? And it seems like he's putting everyone in the best position they can, but also on offense, the Bengals are pretty much using everyone the way they should. Burrow, when you've got that guy, all of a sudden all the weapons start to look really good. We've seen tight ends, average tight ends. Guys, to be honest with you, Uzama and Hurst are nothing, right? Like they're not Mayer or Kincaid, and they looked like they can get big contracts. Obviously they did. Adding a guy to that, they're almost a bulletproof team in terms of drafting. And I hate to get to that point because I felt that way in 2015. And then, oh boy, Ian Fisher couldn't do it anymore, right? You're never bulletproof completely. But you do feel like any of these guys will be maximized in this offense. The thing with me between Mayer and Kincaid is Mayer is, if Bijan's the cleanest, safest, best prospect in this draft, Mayer is, in terms of tight end, as close as you possibly can be to being as safe and clean as you'd want. I wish he was a pinch more athletic. But man, on tape, I don't have a problem with his athleticism. I think he knows how to win with what he owns, what he has, what he's possessed with. I think he gets everything out of it. And I think in this offense, he would be exactly that and continue to be that. A guy that, I mean, he's getting force-fed the ball in Notre Dame, and he won't have to do that now. He's going to have more room to run. He's going to have more up-the-seam things to do when you want to pay attention to Higgins and Chase. Great. Mayer can eat if you need him to on that day. Not that Kincaid won't. I agree. I like Kincaid as well, and I think he could be a Travis Kelce type if he hits it. I just think his floor is significantly lower than Mayer.
Are we underrating Mayer's ceiling?
We are.
Because when you look at the elite tight ends, I don't know if it's all elite athleticism. Look at Travis Kelce now. He's not running a 4.5. He's pushing 4.6. He's in the Mayer range of athleticism probably, but he's just
Mayer's
such a
4.75. Hold on.
That's
Whoa,
fair.
4.71.
4.71.
You said 4.6. I mean, that's a big difference. I'm just
Well,
saying.
Okay.
Well, with his back injury, he was like 4.8.
And you're still getting open.
Yeah, he's still getting open. So, and you think about tight ends of the past, the great ones. Antonio Gates was really smooth, but I don't know if he was ever 4.3, 4.4, 4. He was probably in that higher end. And I don't want to overrate athleticism for a ceiling when Mark Andrews is the type of athlete that Michael Mayer is. Michael Mayer's going to come in, I think, as the most refined receiver, even though Kincaid is awesome at it. And then I just can't get out of my mind I think the Florida defense, when they went back to the huddle against Utah, they weren't really calling plays. They were playing rock, paper, scissors to see who got to line up over Dalton Kincaid.
No, it's my turn to go against. It's my turn. You had the last one.
I need a highlight.
All right. So here's how you combat that or argue that is the Bengals threw it 55 times or whatever it was at Gillette. They're going to throw it all over the field. So giving Burrow an elite pass catcher. And I think that's certainly how I think Kincaid would.
Why is he more elite than Kincaid though? Why is Kincaid more than Mayer? Sorry.
Just watch him. I mean, I know you have, but
Movement skills.
Sideline, 2 feet down. He's making these more acrobatic, athletic catches that, and I'm not saying Mayer couldn't be.
No, you're not wrong. I'm just letting you.
Yeah.
Is Mayer ever?
He's like a ballerina on the sideline some, and I don't really know many tight ends that are doing that.
Is Mayer ever going to be? I'm sorry, I keep talking over you, James, but is he ever going to be a guy who teams are game playing to stop? I see Gronk comparisons in the comments, and I've heard that other places too.
He's not Gronk.
Not Gronk, and that's mostly the blocking to me.
He's not the size of Gronk.
Yeah,
Mayer is barely
was
average
huge.
size.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Now we're in a situation where maybe Higgins and Boyd are gone in a year. I want somebody who's going to take pressure off of Chase in case you end up being in a shitty situation as it comes to receivers. I'm sorry if there's a PG show, we didn't really cover that, but if those guys and are you getting a tight end in round one who can be that number 2 receiver? I don't think you are with Mayer. I agree, solid prospect. I think. If you ask me if you ask me to put money on somebody who's going to get a second contract, especially for the Bengals, yeah, Mayer would stick around. Mayer would get a second contract. They'd love him, but I don't know if you're getting that guy out of him, and especially with where they're at with the situation and with contracts and everything, I want to be able to get that guy.
I think we have to keep in mind their age when they played too. Mayer's young, and he was doing that while Kincaid's older when he was there. I think there's still meat on the bone with Mayer. And it's something I've thought of more recently is just, I don't want to underrate his ceiling just because I'm looking at athleticism. And I know on the field, it shows up a little bit too. He's more of a smooth than a speed guy. It's just, where I am with it. I think he understands leverage well. I think he does a really nice job with his release, which is just something you don't really see at the college level. There's plenty of, I don't know if I love the Heath Miller comparison either, but I think he's more.
That's actually the point to not take Mayer.
He's more dynamic than Heath.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's a better blocker.
But maybe Mayer turns into a better blocker. He was 21 last time we watched him play, where Kincaid was 23, right? The last time. The tight end class, though, maybe we shouldn't even split these guys. And maybe we should consider then and table it for now and say, are we taking Porter, Murphy, Van Ness, Nolan Smith above the tight ends? or are we taking the tight ends above any of these defensive players?
See, I'm separate on both. I would take Kincaid over all of them, but
Would you take Mayer over them then?
Over Porter. Porter's in my doghouse right now.
What did he do?
The vibes.
No, it actually has nothing to do with his name. I don't see it as like there's guys in the second round I feel good about. No, Mayer's safe, right? I think he's safe. So I'd probably take him over Porter. And
I take them both over Van Ness.
Yeah, I was about to say I'd put
Van
Mayer behind Murphy, but in front of Van Ness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they would take him over Nolan Smith too, even though you guys wouldn't. I think they would.
Would you take Van Ness or Nolan Smith then, guys?
Van Ness.
Van Ness.
Van Ness for me.
Smith.
Mike's gonna be the dissent.
Lone dissent here. I think Van Ness is just there's a lot of theory with what he is because he's not there yet.
There's a lot of theory with Nolan Smith too.
Yeah, give me Smith.
No,
I think Smith is going to be a
say-
solid pro.
Yeah, Smith put it on tape.
Ceiling Van Ness, floor Smith, but man, Van Ness was a part-time player at Iowa, and I know
Played
Smith
a lot
was a little
inside,
bit too,
too.
but he played a lot
He just
inside.
pushed people.
Good speed, good power. It's the theory is there. That's what I see it. I think there's theory guys in the second round.
I mean, honestly, I think you got to give Iowa credit for playing him the way he should be played, and I think that's the way that the Bengals will play him too. Like we talked about with Anarumo, and I think he can bounce inside and give you a little bit of juice there. But I think he is more an edge for the Bengals than a lot of teams.
Mm-hmm.
Because of his size, and I don't see him as being super bendy, so I could see him slipping for those kind of reasons. I think. I don't know. I kind of got caught up in that a little bit too, but it's not like he wasn't really a substitute. You know what I mean? Like he was like a 1A guy. Like they were working all those guys in. So I don't really discount him too much for that.
I struggle with both guys. I think both are incomplete players, and that's why they're in the 1C group, obviously. I think there's projection with both, hope for upside in both. I would definitely take Mayer and Kincaid over each one, though.
When I watch Nolan Smith take on run blocks, it feels like he is covered in the blood of his enemies, and it doesn't matter if he's 230 pounds. He is going to ram his face through somebody.
He plays like a hammer, he plays like Mjolnir, dude. He's just a flying hammer.
He's got a lunch pail just glued to his hand at all times. Usually you say that about the Van Ness ones.
I mean, and if you're really concerned, I'm contradicting myself a little bit, but if you're really concerned about his size, if you think he's giving you enough in other places and you're really concerned about his size in the run game, just make him the strong side end and he's taking on blocks from tight ends instead of offensive tackles.
I'm putting Nolan ahead of Lucas Van Ness then, unless anyone has major gripes. Patrick, you didn't say much on either.
I'm okay with either one. I'd put Van Ness a little bit of a Smith, but I'm not gonna. I think that it's fine. I think they're similar. They're both.
The only thing I would split as well is that I think Van Ness looks like a Bengals end, and I think they'd like him. I do think they would prefer the size. I think they'd prefer the power rush, and that'd be the only thing. But do I care personally? No, I don't. I think Nolan Smith can be really damn good if he develops. Okay, then.
So we agree, Kincaid over Mayer. That's great.
Well, we didn't get that far yet. I wanted to be sure. Let's be clear then. Next group is, are we taking Miles Murphy over these tight ends? Me personally, again, like I said, I had Murphy as a 2A. I would take the tight ends.
Yeah,
but it's premium position versus non-premium position here, I think.
Yeah, that's where I end up with Murphy.
Tight end also has a pretty big drop off, I feel, in terms of receiving talent. I mean, there is Laporta and there's still a few guys left.
Musgrave's still out there too.
Beyond the second, but they have to get to 60 after 28. And if you say that Musgrave, Washington, and Laporta are all gone, you're left with Kraft, and then you're like a big project in Kuntz, and that's
right.
Kraft and Kraft, yeah.
I will say, if we're looking at edges though. After the first round guys. Most of them are like 24 years old.
Yes, that's true.
So I mean, if you don't get Thule, you're dealing with a guy who's pretty old. So that definitely drops off as well.
Van Ness is young too. I was just looking at that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
then
I
there's
think all these
Jawari
guys were talking about in
babies.
the first round of like 21, 22.
Oh, this class is separated, man. You see a complete divide once like round 3 hits of you're all old. Everyone else got pushed up.
And
Still the COVID years.
the next pick is on the precipice of round 3, so you don't know what end of that you're going to get in on. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, like, get ready, crack your knuckles, get ready to comment about what an a-hole I am. But that's why you signed Drew Sample, because with Drew Sample,
God damn it, Matt!
Because of Drew Sample and Herb Smith, you don't have to draft the tight end.
That's true.
Mhm.
You can draft
You're
Drew
okay.
Sample in round 3.
You can survive with those two guys. You don't
They
have
can
to
just-
draft the tight end.
they
And
can
if
just
you
be
miss
like the
out on
tight end
'cause you're taking a
revitalizers.
premium position, dude. So be it.
Okay, then. Oh, go ahead,
just
James.
to be on the record of these 1C guys, all of them. Let's just say they're all there, and I want to just put it on record. It won't happen. I think the Bengals would take Dalton Kincaid. I'm serious. Not messing
Okay.
around, not just pushing that's what I think would happen. And Cincinnati would riot because Michael Mayer was there until Kincaid has 15 touchdowns next season.
Wait, what'd you
Even
say?
though I
They
argue
don't have
Mayer-
15 touchdowns in this offense to give.
I put Kincaid on top of this list too.
Oh, they do if they're scoring 40 a game because Burrow's just spreading everybody out, man. What are you talking about, Joe? What are you
Okay,
talking
then.
about?
All right, so let's say we're on the clock, and Porter, Murphy, Mayer, and Kincaid are available. Those 4 that are 4 on the top here. Who's your pick? Go start with James. Go down.
Kincaid, Mayer.
You don't
I
have to
think
rank
it's
them all, but
I
if you
think
can
it's
give me-
Porter Murphy. I think it's Porter Murphy. I just said because I'm low on Porter, but I think I would take Porter.
Jared.
I'd probably go Murphy, Mayer, Kincaid, Porter.
You're not helping, Pat.
I think I
Exact
go
opposite.
Kincaid, Murphy, Mayer, Porter. Porter's definitely at the bottom for me.
I'm going the
Porter,
same.
you said, right?
Well, yeah, Porter's at the bottom. Kincaid is at the top.
Wow.
There
all
we
right.
go. Yeah, Pat.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Mike, what
Yeah,
do you,
Matt.
Mike, you didn't want us to move Porter from 1B. This is your chance to save him from falling out of 1C potentially.
I know. Wow. How do you end up with a 44 with all you guys?
We all took him, and then now we're hating on him.
I just think about it more and more.
Yeah, I mean, I get that Porter doesn't have the cleanest evaluation, but man, does that guy, he's able to jam, he's able to move guys, he's able to, I think he does a good job in man, and I think there is the bones there for the zone coverage, especially if you're talking like cloud cover 2 stuff. I think he'll jam, he'll sink, he's smart, he's Joey Porter Sr. if he played corner and was at that size and athleticism. I like him enough that I think he would still be at the top of this list for me. I mean,
I
it's
gotta say
actually
the Joey Porter Sr. comment.
that's not going to win the Bengals, though. Right?
No. But like these guys, like the high end prospects who are second generation NFL guy. I mean, just outside of Kellen Winslow, which was obviously a terrible example, but most of the time those guys are at least solid pros. Like they've been around it, they get it, they know what it's about. So I do think there's a low bust potential from Porter for that reason.
That wingspan too. I mean, we can't. There's a lot of correlation for wingspan and arm length at corner for guys that disrupt and get pass breakups. Forbes and Porter are just condors out there.
If you could really light that fire under him, I mean, reminds me a little bit. I mean, higher end, but like almost like an Antoine Winfield type, where if he's jamming, he's physical, he's able to move guys, reroute them, do whatever he wants. Like I would love that. But I do understand the athleticism concerns, the flexibility concerns. I'm not ready to move him out of 1C to 2A or to the bottom of this list, because I do think
I don't think we're moving him that far. I was mostly making a joke on that.
Yeah,
we didn't talk about
even like when I'm looking at the next guys, like, man, I definitely wouldn't take Van Ness, Quentin Johnston, even Nolan Smith with his size over Joey Porter Jr.
I agree. I think Joey Porter is fine being above those guys unless anyone has any other opinion on that. But we haven't talked about Quentin Johnston. If he's available at 28, are we taking a guy that can be an outside receiver. He's got a big body, but plays like a smaller guy. That allows you to get Jahmyr Chase in the slots. I think he's good after the catch, really good after the catch. Could provide something there that maybe they haven't had from the number 3 spot and even from the number 2 spot right now. Go ahead, Pat.
I have a hot take here. There's someone that's not even in 2A that I would take over Quentin Johnson, who I think should be in 1C, and that's Zay Flowers, who I think is a better wide receiver prospect than Quentin Johnston and should be in 1C. That's where I had him ranked. I think that the fact that he is as low as he is crazy.
I hate that that's a hot take because I don't think that's crazy.
He's low in the world. That's the problem.
Yeah. Andrew, could you scroll down a little so we just see the top of 1C here since we're done with 1B? I just want to see if we can. No, I want to see the full of 1C. Yeah. And that way we can see some of 2A.
I'll come in on the con of that, by the way, and say that I actually have Johnston as my number 1 receiver.
Ooh.
Matt
in this draft.
He plays small. He plays small, and that makes me upset.
He plays like Sands.
At times, AJ Green played small, and it didn't stop him from having a Hall or a Ring of Honor type career. It frustrated us at times.
AJ Green was always a good contested catch guy, though.
He was, but he didn't always go over people. He would very often try to basket and jump into guys. And I think Quentin Johnson does a lot of the same things.
Here's the thing, though. To me, drafting Johnson is making a statement about the future. Like if you're drafting Johnson, you're not extending T. Higgins.
You're right.
Oh, goodness.
So that's what it is. It's the Dax Hill Bates pick, but we all knew Bates was gone even before that draft. So it would be devastating for that reason. But I think in terms of looking forward, if you don't think you're going to get a deal done with Higgins, this is the way to do it.
No, you franchise. You have a bake sale and you franchise that, man. That's what you do.
Yeah. Okay, then. Do we keep Johnston in 1C?
We might have to now. Matt's on
if we got one of our coaches here saying he's number 1, Jared, go ahead. You got an opinion?
I think his school has a cool mascot.
I love it. I watched all
Did he flash for you when you watched Avila?
No, not really. I got way too distracted by Kendre Miller.
Yeah,
Kendre Miller's good.
Kendre Miller's the one flashing.
I mean, Johnson's a big body, and he makes I feel like most of his stuff was after the catch, and it looks kind of goofy, but that's just a offensive lineman evaluator's opinion.
I think you're right. I put you on the spot there.
Okay.
I think I put him on the list, so that's probably my fault too.
So here's the question: if he's available at 28, and these other guys are all gone, are we taking Quentin Johnston over Brazee, Darnell Washington, Adebawore, Cam Smith, Jahmyr Gibbs?
No.
I would really fight to put Cam Smith into the 1C.
I do the same. I would do Brazee and Cam Smith over Quentin Johnson.
I would have Adebawore, Cam Smith, Jahmyr Gibbs, which it's about that time, fellas.
I have those
over
top
Quentin
3
Johnston
in 1C.
I'd have
What'd you say?
Adebawore, Cam Smith, and Zay Flowers over Quentin Johnston.
It sounds like overwhelmingly then we are 2A at least for now with Johnston. I moved him down.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Sorry.
Is there any, before we concrete 1C, because we're not there yet, is there anyone then, we mentioned it, but is there if maybe one player for each guy here then, because it sounds like we have quite a few. Is there anyone from 2A that you feel we need to push into 1C and consider at pick 28?
Cam Smith.
I've got Brazee because Cam Smith has already been said, but yeah, I think both those guys.
I'll say Adebawore.
I would also say Adebawore.
Mine would be split between Adebawore and Cam Smith as well, so that's fine with me. James, you're going to say Gibbs?
Well, Adebawore, I would put.
Okay,
sure.
I mean that's 3 for sure. So let's move him up, and then I'm gonna move Cam Smith up as well because that's 2 guys that would have.
I'm on Jahmyr Gibbs Island, so I'm not going to sabotage the whole thing here.
Would anyone else take Gibbs at 28?
Not with those guys on the board.
No.
I watched a lot of Alabama. Nope.
Okay, so I think he would have. I'm just looking here.
You can make the case, but we're not going to spend too long. I will let you make the case.
I'm not. I just think he would have he might mess around and win Rookie of the Year if they took him.
I agree. That could happen.
You know, like he would have such an instant impact. It's a perfect fit. Like if it's kind of like Kincaid, where it's like, oh, you give Burrow that, and we did it with the JSN stuff too. So that's the part of it where it's fun. Now I get it, asset wise, positional value. He may not even be on the field for 50% of snaps. You have a question about the pass blocking, although I think there's hope that he can get that part down at the NFL level. I get it. I also think he would be an absolute weapon in this offense. Not every offense, but this one. So it sucks that they don't have a pick at like 40 or 38, because then it's much, much easier than right now, where it's harder to find the path. Anyways, we can keep it rolling.
So the other guys here, Matt did mention Brzee. I'm not a big fan. If anyone else can mention Brzee, I would be more interested, but I think he is an emergency scenario. I don't know how many guys we have listed here, even though it goes down to 26. We're definitely missing.
I checked. We have 23 guys listed, 1A through 1C. Right. That's without the 4 quarterbacks. So that's 27 guys total. So we're one short of pick 28.
We are one short of 28. That's
Although I feel like Branch is probably going to go top 28, and we're just not going to have him there.
Well,
I would argue Brzee.
Let me get to the other guys. There are some other guys below where we can see right here. So we've got Quentin Johnston, Brian Brzee, Darnell Washington, Keely Ringo, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch, Steve Avila, Anton Harrison, Isaiah Foskey, and FAU, Felix Anaduke Uzama.
This is the moment, Joe.
To move Gibbs up?
I'm serious. I should have held it.
If the options are between Brzee and Gibbs, honestly, I could lean Gibbs, because I struggle with the tall defensive tackles. I think leverage is such a big thing. If you're not winning in the first phase, meaning your get off and penetration, you better win laterally and with enough moves and with leverage. And I don't think he has the leverage part. I think he loves the arm over swim move only, and like that's what he's got. And even though he won as a freshman, his freshman tape's pretty dramatically different. I think if he had stayed on that trajectory, he'd be a slam dunk top 20 pick. But anytime you lose the leverage battle, I struggle with you as a defensive tackle. He's not a guy that's going to sink and drop to a knee and be able to keep himself up like, DJ Reader or so. I just see him as a pass rusher in nickel that's going to win laterally rather than as a penetrator.
All right, someone go, because some of you guys like Brzee, and I don't want to hijack it with
my Was I the only one that said it?
No, I like Brzee too. Okay. I think his freshman tape and the first 3 or 4 games before he tore his ACL his sophomore season is some of the best defensive tackle tape that you'll see out of anybody in this class. It's just this last year was kind of just a big old pile of unfortunate events that kind of happened. And I think he got better over the season, and I mean he tested way better than I thought he would.
He did.
And I don't know. I think he one of the things I like is Clemson ran a very similar scheme to Cincinnati this past year, because they had Nick Eason. So he would be a plug and play, would be able to come in. I think you could swap him out for DJ Reader or BJ Hill in any kind of situation. I think there's a lot of flexibility Brzee would bring to the defense, and I think the Bengals would value him more than a lot of other teams.
I don't think you could swap him for DJ Reader.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying with the leverage thing. I get that. I do think he was on a pretty good trajectory, and we know that the things that threw him off were like not an injury that's likely to cause him problems long term, and an illness which came out of nowhere, and a personal tragedy. So they're all things that don't really give you a lot of pause for the future. He 21, he's a young dude too, right? Mm-hmm. So he's still there. I think you're taking the potential, because again, it's a position where where you're scarcely getting the guys that can do that. They can rush the passer, and I think if he can develop and you can work on his leverage, and he could become a good all around 3 technique that you're going to have on the field every down. He doesn't need to be that this year. He can be the pass rush guy, which again, like we talked about with Cansey, is going to give you a ton of value. And I mean, honestly, like if you got a shorter, stouter, tackle that's in there, and then you throw him in the mix on 3rd down, like that's a tough adjustment for a guard to make when you got that guy coming in different situations. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value to the position and to the potential there.
In an effort to try and keep this under 90 minutes, because that was my original projection, that leaves us with a few minutes here. I would like to solidify the 28th guy then, with a first round grade.
All right.
Is that Brzee? Are we not talking about Washington? Are we not talking about Gibbs or Harrison, Foskey, or FAU?
I think Washington's fun because he gives you such another added dimension to the offense, not just a new toy. Like I feel like his blocking.
Jared!
President, what?
Nothing.
What I
He
do?
said a new toy, like we're Toys R Us. Go ahead.
Well, that's how
Guys,
people
look,
talk
man.
about like these receiving options and stuff. But I think Washington's a whole lot more than that. I think he adds to your downhill shotgun run scheme. I think you can get him out of space and block. I think he's just a giant of a man to just lob up touchdowns into the end zone. I think he adds a whole nother dimension. And then like clogging up the middle of the field and letting your receivers do their thing, that's just exciting.
Yeah, I get that. I think that Darnell is interesting. I don't know if he would be their 28th. Of the two, Gibbs and Washington, by the way, I know some are on Brzee. I think that Gibbs gives you that dimension too, just in a different way. Like I'm thinking about the way teams have played too high, and Joe Mixon was the check down king last year, right? 60 receptions. I think Gibbs does more with those, even if it's 52 receptions or 48, and he averages 11 yards a pop half the time and makes these the middle of the field. You want to leave the middle of the field open? Fine. Burrow will just take it every single time until it breaks you. So I know he's a running back, but I think that I almost look at him as like a weapon in adding him to this offense. So that's the part of it. And I don't think there are many guys in this class that do that as consistently as Gibbs, even though he's a part-time player, because outside of Bijan and Roschon Johnson, probably Charbonnet, there's not many complete 3-down guys that you think can come in right away and be that kind of back.
Gibbs has, the speed to make your angles look stupid.
Right.
And so like, yeah, he can turn those short things into big things. Like we said, when we talked about, we're debating a slot versus a running back, and I said, it's the same thing. And that's what you're looking at with Gibbs. You're getting that out of him. Now the pass pro sucks. All right. That's a problem.
But at least he reads there. He does have reads and checks before he leaks out.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, like, but if you're taking him to be a receiver, let him be a damn receiver. If you need a guy, you get Brayton Willis as a tight end in like the 6th round from Oklahoma, and you turn him into or the fullback from North Dakota State, and then look at your third guys in the field in a wing position, and that's your 6-man pass protection. Like you can scheme around that. Like honestly, it's the same thing with Dalton Kincaid. Like you could scheme around not having the guy that can do the blocking if you have somebody else that can do the blocking. They love receivers that can block. Screw it. If Kincaid kept blocking, you're on to Boyd's side. Like you could figure out that stuff if the plus of it is enough. My big problem with Gibbs is he's 200 pounds. Like I just don't know. I don't know how much volume you're going to be able to give him for that reason. And I mean, honestly, Kamara, even like they say he's like a small Kamara, but even Kamara, like my issue with him when people call him a top running back has always been when does he ever rush for 1,000 yards? Like he's a playmaker, he's a bigger playmaker, he's more important than most running backs in the league to his team, but he wasn't the running back per se. So maybe that's the role for Gibbs is the Kamara role. Like he's not the running back per se.
Yeah.
But that would be awesome in this offense, right? Like that's how I would
like that still works because at 200 pounds, yeah, maybe he can't run
what do you got, Mike?
30 times a game.
This is not a pro or anti-Gibbs thing, but I do think that he is more of a CJ Spiller than he is an Alvin Kamara. I think he reads open field better than he reads closed, tight spaces. I think he's got that really good speed, make you look stupid. Spiller had that. Kamara had the insane balance, and I don't see that as much with Gibbs. I think he's a little bit easier to get down. It's that you can't really touch him, and that was CJ Spiller to me. So when I'm watching those two, that's the guy I come to a little bit more, but it's the same idea. Spiller was never the 1A. He was always
They tried to
One
replace
year.
him plenty of times. They drafted Willis McGahee, and they let Travis Henry be the guy, and and then it was Fred Jackson, DJ Spiller. But Spiller also had one of the greatest running or overall offensive seasons ever, and people don't realize it because it was Chan Gailey offense. They let him go nuts, and they just didn't give him the ball enough because they didn't feel they could. They'd only give it to him 10 times a game, and he'd go for 100 yards in that. But they just didn't feel like they could give him the load because of it.
And the NFL is a little different. It is a little different now too.
And that was their dark ages. So they, fire their coaches and new staff comes in and no one knows how to use Spiller anymore. So, how things go. It sounds like we have enough debate though on these 2A guys to not push one up, that we could see a scenario where you would take Darnell over Brian Brzee, or see a scenario where you would take Jahmyr Gibbs over Darnell Washington, or whatever the case may be. If there's enough debate, we don't push them up. We don't have to have 28 guys there. There won't be 28 first round players. We know this. There'll probably be 20 to 22, let's say at best. We may be picking from a 2A guy, and that's okay as long as we're comfortable with that. I don't think we have enough time to completely get comfortable with the 2A board, but at least I would table this today, and we'd show up tomorrow bright and early at 4 a.m. as it goes, and to do the draft discussion again. But yes, I think if we scroll up a little bit more, Andrew, and look at our first round, is there anyone, are we comfortable with these guys? So we're saying if one of these guys are available at 28, now we didn't rank the last couple we put on there in Adebawore and Cam Smith. That would be for the next session. But are we saying we're comfortable taking these guys in the first round if they're available at 28?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want anyone on this list that we wouldn't walk away with that on Thursday night saying, okay, we got a guy that can help us. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Then I think
nobody wants to keep Porter off. There's a lot of anti.
I'm standing.
I don't ever run one on him either. But
where's John Michael Schmitz at?
Some others were more vociferous than me on that.
3A.
Point,
oh God.
Oh God.
Was it Aragorn with the sword? That was me keeping Porter in 1C.
Well, this is why the Bengals and every team meet day after day for the next week, in order to, maybe they call the high school coach tomorrow and or whoever it may be, and try and get a little more information, try and maybe have a virtual with one of these guys just to get a little more confidence in one of these players. But this is supposed to be a glimpse in the idea of a very long process. We got it down to an hour and a half here, and we would probably even debate more of these guys and swap them if we kept it going and did a full 8-hour shift on this, and obviously a full week.
Yeah, it would go back and forth a lot. I mean, I still think there's a lot, and I can imagine what draft guy Jared's thinking right now. There's a lot of big guys that you didn't get to talk about. So,
man, Steve Avila's in that 2A right there. I can see it.
Scroll down.
I like it.
Not really, but yes. So, James, if you want to wrap it, I think we accomplished our goal of providing a look at what it probably looks like.
Yeah. So, Joe, you're going to tweet out your draft board, like the funnel thing. I know if you're watching halfway through or whatever, or you think there's going to be some Bengals fan that would be interested in this, we essentially, if you're just joining us, did our big board for the Bengals first round and an early second round, and Jahmyr Gibbs was too low is the end result. No, I'm just kidding. But no, this was a lot of fun. Make sure you follow everybody at Draft Guy Jared. All right, Patrick, say your thing here so I don't get it wrong.
It's LB3 PT, man.
Yeah, I've told Patrick for like the last 5 years that he needs to change his handle because it's not helping him.
I didn't know his name was Patrick until like 2 days ago. So
right.
I had no clue. At Coach Minnich, right? I got that right, Matt?
You got that right.
At Bengals_Sands, at Joe Goodberry. That one's hard to remember. Also hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because me and Joe have like 8 draft videos coming out. We've banked a lot of them, previewing all these positions at length. So thanks for all the comments. Thanks to all 6 and Andrew Fox Miller, but all 6 of our helpers, our drafters, our rankers, whatever you want to say. But I appreciate you for watching. And until next time, thank you so much. This is Cincinnati Bengals Talk.